Nancy Armour had another column where she's, triggered about something. And in general, she's writing a column at USA Today about those that are anti-biological men competing against biological women. And then the target turns into Sam Ponder, who's been outspoken, as has Sage Steele, as has Riley Gaines, Martina Navratilova, and others. And while Armour doesn't defend the idea of biological men competing and winning against biological women, winning championships at that, winning a spot on a podium over a female, she then rips Ponder, instead of defending her stance, rips Ponder for bigotry, rips a woman for standing up for women's rights, is the best way to describe what Nancy is doing in this recent column. And it's par for the course. She tweeted out that if ESPN Sam Ponder was truly concerned about women's sports, she's had ample opportunity in the last year to call out the inequities that actually do exist. She hasn't. This isn't about fairness. It's about her bigotry. And many are coming to Sam Ponder's defense, including Sage Steele and others. Sage mentions that it's a lonely battle. I don't find it lonely at all. In fact, I think the vast majority of those that hear of this topic and discussion side with what we've said and what Riley Gaines stands for and what, quote unquote, the science stands for. That biological men should not be competing against biological women. And it continues to happen, and it continues to not really be defended, but propped up as an argument for clicks by people like Nancy.
And Sarah Spain, who's an ESPN employee, last I checked, liked a tweet calling Sam Ponder a bigot and then deleted that like at some point, apparently. And when asked for comment from OutKick, ESPN has not replied to that about what happened when you're attacking one of your coworkers. Something else that Nancy Armour, I guess it is, writes, quote, "Don't be fooled by the people who screech about fairness to cloak their bigotry towards transgender girls and women, the transgender girls and women who have the audacity to want to play sports in particular. No one is trying to stop transgender girls and women from playing sports. They're not at all. You got to play sports where you're biologically set to play sports in. That's the argument from pretty much everyone in America. There's not, Hutton mentioned this, but there's not a lot of explanation as to how this is fair. Leah Thomas, what happened there, how that's fair. I don't see a lot of explanation from Nancy. It's just an attack on Sam Ponder because how dare Sam Ponder take up this fight and this argument and not go after these other issues with women's sports, some of which she brings up are fair points about women's sports being at a disadvantage overall. And Nancy has a problem with Sam Ponder caring about this issue and not speaking out against the other ones without offering a solution to this issue or even saying that Sam Ponder is really wrong, just hinting at Sam Ponder's bigotry being at play. This is all a cloak for bigotry. No, it's not. You can't try to get into the intention of what someone is saying. You have to weigh the merits of what they're saying. What Sam Ponder's saying, what I'm saying, what Hutton's saying, what virtually all of America is saying is that it is unfair for biological males to move over from men's or boys' sports and go into women's and girls' sports and start winning trophies in those sports. It's a very cut and dry argument. It does threaten women's and girls' sports if this continues to happen. And guess what's happening? It's continuing to happen, regardless of motivation or intention, regardless of what anyone watching this thinks about my underlying sense of transgender rights or whatever's going on. The fact of the matter remains is it's unfair. And what Sam Ponder is saying is a fact. It's not opinion. It's fact. It's unfair. So I don't give a damn what Nancy Armour thinks about Sam Ponder's beliefs or if she's cloaking her bigotry behind this or whatever she thinks. What is she saying? Tell me where it's wrong. What she's saying is it's unfair, and you didn't tell me where it's wrong. You told me how this is a weapon used to cloak bigotry and yada, yada, yada. I don't care. Tell me what she's saying and where it's wrong. You can't. No one can.
No, they don't go to that extreme.
No one can. It's
not
just
even the extreme.
How dare you talk about this and not about this?
Argument. They can't make the argument that it's fair.
It's just so tired.
Yeah.
And also to call, what is the line about Riley Gaines? Calls her an anti-trans activist? Riley Gaines is not an anti-trans activist. I've never heard Riley Gaines come on this show or any other one and be anti-trans.
No. And in fact, we've
She's
specifically asked
anti-men
her
competing
that.
against women.
Yeah. Which is what we've said. No one is saying stop doing what you're doing or else. It's stop trying to compete against women and taking titles and chances at a championship, chances to compete and advance to the next round of something. It doesn't have to be for a title. Taking a spot away from a biological female who Riley Gaines tied with.
Yeah.
And they gave the trophy to Leah Thomas. It's not a lonely fight. It's becoming much more public, specifically with ESPN personalities. Sage Steele and Samantha Ponder being the target of those that have tried to defend, can't, so they attack others. Those at ESPN that do that are now having to, like you said, you've got some that are, liking tweets that are going after Ponder?
Yeah, Sarah Spain liked a tweet. I'm going to find the exact tweet she liked, but basically liked a tweet calling Sam Ponder a bigot.
Which was that was the original tease on the tweet for the story from Nancy Armour. It was bigotry.
Well, and she's also, and now we're getting into in her piece, reading it, Nancy gets into Sam Ponder had some, I guess, pro-Donald Trump tweets that she's saying weren't handled the same way as Jamel Hill's anti-Donald Trump tweets. But Jamel Hill was never disciplined for anything with that. She was disciplined because of her stance on the NFL, which is a league partner of ESPN. That was the problem after she was warned about it. It's just all so stupid, right? I mean, let's get to the heart of the issue here and discuss what's really going on.
There's no common sense here.
Yeah, Sarah Spain liked the tweet saying that Sam Ponder engages in bigotry from Nancy Armour. So she liked that tweet that we showed a second ago. That's where it gets into this. ESPN's got a fight on their hands right now with Sage Steele over suing about her First Amendment rights with what she said about their COVID policy and vaccination policy. And this is, I think there was a story I read earlier from Variety that got into this. ESPN is tying themselves into a pretzel right now because they are fighting one lawsuit by claiming we have the right to do this, this, and this with something that we don't approve of or someone speaking out against policy.
Right.
And in the other breath, those same lawyers are suing the state of Florida and Ron DeSantis because you can't stop us in our business because you don't approve of what we say. So they're arguing for Sage Steele, essentially, against the state of Florida in one lawsuit against them, and then arguing against their own stance against the state of Florida when arguing with Sage Steele and being sued for multi-millions of dollars. It's going to be a tough argument on either side. They're not winning both. They may win the fight against the state of Florida, but they're definitely losing the fight against Sage Steele if that happens.
Well, and then also, you got employees upset over the hiring of Pat McAfee. Well, you have 7,000 employees to the company being through Disney being let go, being laid off to save over $5 billion on the payroll, on money being spent. This is just the surface level of it because more and more female specific at ESPN are speaking out publicly about it. Those that were privately, Riley Gaines told us, privately saying, hey, thank you for saying this, keep up the good fight, are now publicly tweeting those same comments. And they're taking the same heat that Riley has seen. But the more, again, it's not a lonely battle. It's the common sense aspect that's being stated that the quiet minority continues to chirp at. But they won't defend their side of the issue. It's the bigotry on the other side that they'll point to or try to point to in this case. Chad, the NBA is assessing their flopping rule where they're going to potentially assess a technical free throw, one free throw, if it is deemed a flop. They're thinking about running this through the summer league to see how it goes. I have no problem with it. In fact, I mean, I also don't hate the fact if they want to take out the offensive foul altogether. But flopping can go on both sides of the floor. And I think it's also an effort to just kind of clean up the sloppiness that some of these regular season games can turn into.
And it's also, there's a couple ways to administer this rule. I'm fascinated by it because, how do you...
The judgment of it?
Yeah, we can see the easy ones, right? If you review it and you go back and say, okay, that was definitely a flop or that was definitely exaggeration or whatever it may be, and you could assess a technical foul with that. But what if you gave the coach the option or the player the option? And what I mean by that is this. We're facing a similar rule in college football where there's a problem with teams faking injuries to slow down the offense.
Right.
So I've always said, that's fine if you want to do that, but they got to sit out the rest of that series. If a player is injured and the game is stopped, they have to sit out a play or two, whatever it is. Whatever rule you want to put on, they got to come out for 2 plays, then they can re-enter the game. That might slow down people faking injuries because they don't want their starting players to be exiting the game. What if a player flopped and an opposing coach challenged it and said, we're going to challenge that for a flop and a technical, and they said, you either get the technical or we don't review it and you can sit out for 5 minutes. You just got injured. If you're going to hit the deck that hard, you must be hurt. So now you have to exit the game for 5 minutes, almost a penalty box. Go sit over there. You hit the floor. We call the offensive foul. But because of that, because they challenged it, we can either go through with the review, but if you think you may have flopped, you can take the automatic 5-minute assessment or we'll review it for a technical foul.
Yeah.
I love anything involving strategy, and I like that added element to it where we could just stop. It's almost like telling a runner, go ahead and take first instead of throwing the automatic walk. You can go to the coach, say, we're going to review, they want to review this for flopping, and you could just say, just the foul stands, he sits for 5 minutes because he's hurt on that foul. Or go ahead and review it, we think he was actually fouled, and we'll see what happens. Maybe that's making it too complicated for people,
yeah,
but I do like the coaching strategy part of it if you get called out for flopping.
I think that there should be a bigger penalty if you get called out for it. I think the ref should just be able to know if there's an exaggeration or not. I don't think the refs can in real time. Oh, but
this rule though is going to be in place because the refs screw this up all the time. They're calling offensive fouls for flopping, and they're calling the foul. So the only way to do it is to have a check and balance of you fooled me.
LeBron's going to be called out for this.
They're trying to stop them from fooling the ref. That's the issue, is the ref is getting fooled by the player because of the flop. So you're going to have a review process to cut that out.
I'm eager to see how they try to police this during the summer league. And a lot of it was, Dylan Brooks and LeBron and some of the exaggerations that were going on, right? But in some cases, it's a legit contact where we saw legitimate players, Ja Morant, Giannis, get hurt on taking offensive fouls that were not flops, just hard plays. So there is a checks and balance, Chad, to it, but they've got to get the number down on the obvious ones. If you have a couple of guys that hit the deck, whatever, but it's just a routine play now that they need to remove from the game. NBA ref, Eric Lewis is his name, 19-year vet, removed from his burner account. It was deleted. Pretty obvious that it's Eric Lewis who had a burner account on Twitter because he followed 5 people, including the George Mason Women's Hoops program, because his wife is the head coach for George Mason's women's basketball program. He followed the NBA, the NBA PA, and a couple of others. But all he really did on this burner was go after those that were attacking him, ripping him for being a bad official, or others on his crew or around the league. And it was so obvious that he gets called out for it and ends up deleting the account. But those tweets last forever. And Eric Lewis had a burner to defend himself and others because officials nowadays can't do that publicly.
Do you think Eric Lewis, because he's getting berated by fans and everyone online as an NBA official, he was in therapy and his therapist said, Here's an exercise you can do. Create a fake account, and to exact some revenge, you can utilize the fake account and go after the haters, and that'll cleanse you of that anger and make you feel better about yourself, and then you can go about your day. Because the only reason you do this is to just feel better about yourself.
Or try to.
It's not doing anything. You have no followers, right? It's not like you're utilizing some massive account to shame someone. You're just saying exactly what you want to the people criticizing you because the league won't allow you to say it publicly.
Yeah, they don't give you a voice.
You can't speak. You have no voice. So now I have a fake account, and I can voice my displeasure with the people coming after me and my job. But all it does is make Eric Lewis feel better. It really doesn't even do anything bad to the person that's receiving the tweet. I don't get how it's that huge of a deal for the NBA. It's just funny to me.
Well, it just made
but
it
all
obvious.
it does is make Eric Lewis feel better.
It made him feel better, but he made it so obvious because all he did was tweet about this. No followers, but followed his wife's women's basketball program.
I love it.
Along with the league.
You go, Eric.
Yeah, well, Eric,
you tell those haters.
A 19-year NBA vet, when you see him, you've seen him ref games. Yeah, I wish the officials had more of a voice than what we're given on all of these platforms, on all of the major leagues across the country.
Eric took his voice back, and I respect him for it.
Yes.
I want the league to pardon him.
Just do it through your Twitter account.
I want a full pardon for Eric Lewis. That's what I want. No problems, no stipulations, no punishment, nothing. I just want him to continue using that burner account to set the haters straight. That's what I want for Eric.